All right, so I'm gonna get started. I'm gonna tell you a little bit about myself. I'm Christopher. I'm a young adult counselor. In college, I'm a junior in college working on a degree in counseling psychology. I'm gonna tell you a little bit about myself, a little bit about the life, because it pertains to this. So we're gonna talk about the 4 agreements today. I'm gonna tell you how I found them. I'm gonna tell you what they've done for me, how they helped. It's been a big part of my recovery, spiritually and mentally. The 4 agreements could be said to be an intro to cognitive behavioral therapy. So my childhood was not an ideal childhood. It was not set up for, it was not the happy times that the childhood is supposed to be. There was a lot of abuse. There was a lot of sexual abuse. There was consistently me being taken away from my mom, being put in state's custody, being put with people that I did not know due to the sexual abuse that was going on. So it started to change how I perceived the world, how I perceived myself. It was also a common theme in our family that we would talk about, that the world was out to get us. And so that was another thing that developed a perception of the world. Here you're going to learn about these thought patterns and where these thought patterns come from. So for me, as I tell the story a little bit, you're going to be able to pick out how some of these thought patterns could be in place. This mistrust and abuse, the abandonment, they're thought patterns. And really what I've learned that it is so I'll explain to you what an agreement is. An agreement is, so at some point somebody taught you what color these pants were. They're black. At some point somebody taught you that and you agreed to it. And then it became a belief, like now I know what that color is. That's a basic agreement that we use to communicate, so we can communicate clearly. So the questions that are going to be posed in this lecture are going to be, what other agreements have I made? What agreements have I made about myself or about the world or about reality and about my place in it? So what I found was that through the childhood, so it lasted until, it was pretty chaotic all the way up until I was about 12 years old. And then at 12 years old, I found hydrocodone, and I walked in on my brother, and he was taking some. I said, "What do those do?" He said, "They make you happy." And I was like, "Oh man, I could use some of that." So the first weekend when I was 12 years old that I took the hydrocodones, it was when my brother came back home from the weekend, they were all gone. So there's a sign right there. But the trouble started way before that. So through that childhood, through the constant chaos, it caused me to form some certain beliefs about myself. Beliefs like I was a burden to the world. I deserved to be hurt. I struggled with addiction and mental illness, so I was also a cutter. And those self-harm behaviors really came from this idea that at some point through the way people treated me or through life's experiences, it taught me that I deserved to be hurt, that I didn't deserve anything good in this life, that I was a burden to the world. I remember having suicidal thoughts about as early as 7 or 8 years old. I can remember having the idea of how could I leave? How could I escape this reality? Also during that time period, the only escape that I had was psychological. So I developed dissociative disorders, where I would escape mentally, and that followed me throughout my childhood, or throughout into adulthood. So one other way that I found, when I found drugs were an escape without having to use the dissociative skills that I had developed. So at 12, I started using, I was a baseball star, which the baseball field was one place I could go into the field, and that shit didn't matter. I didn't focus on it. I didn't think about it. I felt good. It took my mind off of everything that had been happening in my life. So I signed to play baseball at a junior college. It was very tough the first year, very tough to go to practices when I was having the opiate flu. The coaches could not figure out why I was always sick. I made frequent trips home to meet my connections. So that didn't work out, so I dropped out of school. So that addiction continued, the addiction and the maladaptive behaviors, it continued all the way into my late 20s. I'd been in 3 treatment centers up until I was 29. and I'll tell you about the last 24 hours in my active addiction. So I think the last year that I was spiraling downward, out of control, me and my wife, she was my high school sweetheart. I had also met her when I was 12 years old. So my high school sweetheart, and we had divorced. I had a seizure coming off of alcohol or dope. I had a seizure and fractured my spine. And then she left in August. That happened in September. And then in December, my father passed away. So all those things and everything else leading up into it had a very deep impact on me. It continued to feed the suicidal thoughts. I was hopeless. I didn't think there was a way out of my addiction. I was shooting dope. I was still in mouthwash. Towards the end, I was still in mouthwash out of a Walmart to get drunk. Mouthwash also has fluoride in it. Fluoride is a neurotoxin, so it did not help my mental state at all. So my last 24 hours, I was after my father passed away. I got a little bit of help from family. They let me sleep on the couches a little bit, but it ended up that I had nowhere to go. They kind of washed their hands of me. I ended up on the streets in Jackson, Tennessee, which is where I'm from. I ended up on the streets. I was homeless. I was physically, mentally, and spiritually broken. I moved into this abandoned house in Jackson, Tennessee, and I was scared to death of everything. So I didn't come out of that house very much. I only came out in the middle of the night. So I didn't ever come out in the daytime because it's hard to explain why. I was scared of everything. I was scared of everything around me. I was scared of the feelings. Suicide was a daily option for me because I was in so much physical, emotional, and spiritual pain from everything in life, not even just from one event. So the last 24 hours, I retreated into a closet in this house, partly because I was scared to death of everything. I retreated to this closet. I had a little radio that the batteries were going out. I was stealing batteries from Walmart, but I had lost my ability to be able to go out and go get it anymore. Like once I went into a deep psychosis. So the psychosis, it's fractured my sense of self. So I didn't have a drive to eat. I didn't have a drive for food or water. I didn't have any capability of taking care of myself at that moment. I was hearing things. I was hallucinating. I was seeing demons in this house. There was no utilities or anything, but this was in August, the 1st of August. So it was very hot in that house in West Tennessee in August. It's in the hundreds. So you can imagine what it was in that house. It was hot. I was in a psychosis, so I was hallucinating. I was seeing things. The radio was going dead, so it was talking really slow. And to me, I thought it was the demons talking to me. They were getting ready to take me. So I was pretty sure that that point was that was the end of my life. So an addict, so there were people who knew about the abandoned house. They knew where I was staying, and she came to the house. And like I said, time in a state of psychosis, you lose your perception of time. So I'm not aware. I know I've probably been in there at least 3 or 4 days without coming out. So I was in that closet. I was huddled up. I had some old linens in there. I'm covered up, in this hot house too. And I'm thinking this is the end. My mind is broken. Spiritually, I'm broken, and physically, it had only been about a year after I broke my back, and it still wasn't healed up because I never allowed it to heal up properly. So an addict that knew I was there, nobody had seen me in a little while, and so she came to this house, and she opened the closet door. She saw me laying there. I can remember it was dark in the house because I was kind of in the middle of the house. It was dark, and I remember a flashlight. It was a cell phone. She shined it in, and she didn't say anything. She saw me. She saw the state I was in, and she left. She says that she came back about 8 hours later to me. I couldn't tell. I didn't even know what it was. So she came back about 8 hours later, and she shined the light in the closet again, and I saw a hand reach around the light, and it was a bottle of vodka. And so I set up. I knew enough to know what that was. That could help, I guess. So I grabbed the bottle of vodka. I downed most of the pint, I think, and it gave me enough. It made me feel just enough better to where I could sit up. And then she sat down with me, and she gave me a spoon, a syringe, and some dope. So the alcohol had allowed me to kind of control the shaking and the withdrawals. So I did the dope, and I stood up, and I told her, I said, take me to a fucking hospital. She took me to a crisis stabilization unit, and that's where I spent Spent about 14 days, which is a long time to be in a crisis stabilization unit or a medical detox unit. But they switched me. They allowed me like 7 days in the detox and 7 days in the crisis stabilization unit. Like I said, I was in a psychosis. So as I kind of came to, I remember I cried every day for 14 days. Those 14 days when I stepped out, I knew the people at this hospital. I had frequented that hospital. I tried over and over to get a hold of my mental diagnosis and the addiction. So they knew who I was. They recognized me. I've been there many times, in states of crisis. They saw me cutting, the suicidal behavior. So I cried every day for 14 days. I walked out of my room, and the counselor would come up to me, and I'd just start bawling. And because I told you that suicide was a real option for me at that time. So it was always in my mind, like, how much of this can I take? I was in so much pain that I did not feel like I could keep going. It took everything in me to counter that idea that I should take myself out or kill myself. So the only thing that those people would tell me is just don't quit. Just don't give up. Don't quit, Christopher. Just don't quit. It was very complex. I had the childhood trauma. I had the mental illness. And I had an addiction. That's a very complex thing mentally to treat. And all they could tell me at the time was just don't stop. Just don't quit. And that was enough to get me through those 14 days. So I did listen to that, and it did start to bring up a little bit of fight inside of me. I'm fighting for my life right now, and I'm not sure that I was ready to give up. These were recovering alcoholics and addicts for the most part that worked in this hospital. They're the nursing, the counselors. For the most part, most of them were recovering addicts or alcoholics. So it was our people that saved my life, which is part of the reason I do what I do today, and it's part of the reason I got back in school. So that I could put the education together with my experiences so I could get back and I could help others that are in a similar position that I was in. So I went to Memphis, Tennessee, constantly this everyday fight to keep going. I went to Memphis, Tennessee. I was in a 30-day program. It was in Orange Mound. I don't know if anybody knows where that's at. It's not the best part of Memphis. It's kind of the Harlem of Memphis, or the past Harlem. So I went there. I spent 30 days there. It was not a facility like this. There was not as much help here. Basically, it was only people that had been through similar circumstances that were trying to get back and trying to help. So I spent 30 days there, and then I transferred to a homeless program in Memphis called CAP, Cocaine Alcohol Awareness Program. And that's where I met one of my mentors. His name is Christopher Moore. He's the guy that actually gave me the book. He was in school. He got his master's from Memphis University. I was really blessed to have him at that spot at that time because he was not there very, very much long after that. So we sat down. And there was a couple of things that happened at this time in my life that I'll share. So I was in this unit. These guys, this homeless program is where the Memphis City Jail sent their people. So if you had anybody trying to get out of jail, on drug charges, they would send these guys down. These guys were gangsters. They were right off the streets of Memphis. So there was 30 of us in this program. They were affiliated with different gangs. But what I learned was that these people were who society has counted out. Society would say that these people were the worst of the worst. You would not see a lot of value. The society would not see a lot of value in the people that were in this program. So I became friends. So one of the first days I was there, I was still broken. I was still crying. I still didn't know if I was going to be able to hang on. I was entertaining the idea of killing myself, and I didn't know anything else to do. So like our first group, I just let it out. And one guy was being an asshole, and he said, well, go do it. If you want to kill yourself, go do it. And then there's a group of guys that were affiliated with another gang, and they stood up. And they said, man, you can't tell this man that. This man is hurting. Can you not see that? And all of them came over and they gave me a hug and they told me not to quit. It does make me a little emotional when I talk about that. It was very special. So I formed relationships with these guys. Eventually, even that guy that told me to go ahead and kill myself, that guy ended up becoming one of my best friends while I was there. I also lost one of my best friends while I was there. He got kicked out. He went and overdosed that night, which is another reason. It's another one of my whys. And we're going to tie that back in towards the end of this lecture. about understanding why you're doing what you're doing, why recovery makes sense. So I worked with this guy. Christopher Moore. We were in his office one day, and he asked me, and he said, "Are you still entertaining the idea of suicide, Christopher?" And I said, "Yes. It's every day. It's my ejection button. If things get too hard, it hurts too bad, I will leave." And he looked down, and I really trusted this guy, and I respected him. I respected his education. I respected, the man that he was. I respected his opinion. And he told me, he said, "Christopher," and this one sentence pushed through and made it through all the bullshit and all the hurt and all the pain that had been part of my life all the way up to this point. He said, "Christopher, the world can't afford to lose you." And like even right now, it gives me a feeling of just hearing him say that. And because I respected him, because I trusted him, he saw something for me that I could not see for myself at that time. He started the process of changing how I see myself, or how I saw myself at that time. With that one phrase, those few words. So he said, "Christopher, I've seen what you've been able to do with these guys." He said, "We can't connect with some of these guys." He said, "Yeah, they come out of their rooms in the morning and they tell you they love you. They tell you that they hope you have a good day." He said, "You've connected with people that society views as being the worst of the worst. Society views these people as being lost hopes, that they'll be right back in jail." And it was that same group, group of us, of addicts and alcoholics, again, that provided something for me. And so I told those guys, if you don't think you can change the world, you've changed my world. Those guys and those connections that I formed. So he said, based on that, you've been able to connect with these guys. These guys are trained. Their life trains them to not experience emotion. He said their lives train them to not have any caring or compassion. He said, "Yeah, you brought that out of them." He said, they like I said, they would see me in the morning times. They would tell me they love me. They hope I had a good day. They'd ask me how I was doing throughout my day. It was really an amazing experience, which is another one of my whys. So that one phrase, shook my world. It shook my perception of myself. "Christopher, the world can't afford to lose you." And I believed it. I think at that moment, and we'll talk about agreements, at that moment I had formed a new agreement. At that moment, I had formed a new agreement about myself. See, the childhood had taught me that I had no value. The childhood had taught me that I had no worth, that I deserved to be hurt, that I was a burden to this world. And then when I got into addiction, I was not doing anything for society, and that just fed into that idea that maybe the world would be better off if I killed myself. I remember thinking that, like, this world I'd be doing the world a favor if I would just leave. I'd be doing my kids a favor if I just left. It was a very irrational thought at the time, but it made sense to me at the time. So he changed my perception of that. Maybe I have something, maybe through my experiences, I have something to offer this world. Maybe I have something to give back, and maybe I can help. Maybe I can use my pain and my suffering and my experiences to help others so that they don't have to, so I can help ease their pain and suffering. So the 4 agreements is what Christopher, that guy that said that to me, the 4 agreements, he had a book on his desk and he asked me to read it. So I read through it and I told him like the second day, I was like, "Man, I'm having trouble holding on to this information." He said, "Maybe you should take notes." And I was like, "Well, I've never been a note-taking kind of guy." And then he said another thing that shook my world. He said, "Maybe you should learn." I was like, all right. So I see what he's getting at. I can learn. I can learn to be better. I can become better. I can become wiser, and I can become stronger each day. And that shed some light, and so that clicked the light bulb on for me. And then the other thing he said, "Christopher," he said, if you will change, everything will change for you. All this shit that's happened to you, that doesn't have to change. All your past, it doesn't have to change. The way people have treated you, that doesn't have to change. But if you will change in this process, everything will change for you." And I believed it. And so I started looking at how can I invest in myself? How can I put my time and my energy into my personal development, my personal growth? And I believe that is recovery. That's what recovery is all about. It's about growing. It's about learning. It's about changing. It's about adapting. So we're going to talk about the 4 agreements. So after I worked through the 4 agreements, I took notes on them. After I worked through the 4 agreements, I started, it changed so much about how I saw the world. And so I went back and I studied the 4 agreements, and I said, what was it about this book? What was it about the principles in this book that started to change things for me? So I went back and I studied the psychology of it. So now I'm also in school and I'm studying that, like what made this so effective. And so then I put it, when I started working here, I put this together with the idea of being able to talk to you about the principles and to tell you what I've learned about them and hopefully give you some insight on how to apply them in your life. Like I said, they're very beneficial. So my goal is to get my PhD in psychology. Like I said, I'm a junior, I'm working on my bachelor's now. But my goal is to get my PhD and do more research into psychology. Now that's a very different, this is a very different person than what you would have saw 3.5 years ago. That person didn't think anything was possible, much less to start to have an eye on going after my PhD. Thinking that I can have some type of value, my research, what I'm learning, what I'm doing, that it could have some type of value in psychology, that could help in the treatment of substance abuse and mental health disorders. So there's a big change in that process. And the 4 agreements, these ideas started the wheels turning to changing my perception. So we're going to talk about agreements that were made as a child and who they were made with. How I found the 4 agreements, I've already discussed that, I've talked to that. What the agreements did for me, like I said, it's put me on it helped to start the wheels turning of thinking that there was something better for my life and for me. We're going to talk about the insight into the psychology of the agreements. Carl Rogers talked about conditions of worth, which give you an idea of why agreements are made or how they're made. Conditions of worth are standards of behaviors that must be followed or agreed to. This becomes a rule book for how we interact with the world. Children often have no choice but to agree with authority figures, which sets the standard and forms our core beliefs. So I'll talk to you about a little bit of the dysfunction that was in my family. My mother dealt with mental illness as well. And so there were a lot of what I was learning about the world and about my place in the world and what reality was. A lot of what I was learning was very distorted. But as a child, I had no ability to challenge what as a child, if you challenge too much, you're considered a bad kid. So the conditions of worth says that if you just believe me, you make these agreements and you follow what I say, and you take what I say to be true, then you're a good kid, right? So much of what I learned about the world and about my place in it, I was conditioned to think this way. And it was very tough for a child to challenge what I was being taught. Now, I don't see this as being anyone's fault. It just simply is the way it is. Families pass down thought patterns. Your family teaches you how to think. Those are the main influence in your thought process. How do you view the world? How do you think about yourself? That is taught to you from the authority figures, most of which are parents, family members, teachers in school, or religious authority figures. They begin to form your core ideas of what this world is, who you are, and what your place in it is. So we're going to talk about becoming aware of false, irrational, and limiting beliefs, and we're going to talk about replacing these beliefs. I'll share with you an example of how I replace one of my superstitious beliefs. So the 4 agreements are: be impeccable with your word, don't make assumptions, don't take anything personally, and always do your best. So being impeccable with your word, one of the most powerful things that I learned at that moment, at that time. What I've learned is that people are always telling a story. They're telling a story about yourself. Like I said, families start to tell you what that story is. They start to tell you what the storyline is of who you are and what your place is in reality. They will teach you what that story should be, and then you kind of take it over. And so you tell yourself a story. I would say that there's a story you're telling yourself, even right now, at this moment. There's a story you're telling yourself about what this stay at Cornerstone is. If you think real hard, you can identify it. What am I telling myself? Is this an obligation? Is this something I just have to go through? Or is this an opportunity? Those are 2 different mindsets. They're 2 different storylines. One's an empowering storyline, and one is a not empowering storyline. If this is an opportunity, I become open, I become aware, and I start to look for opportunities to learn. So that's part of being impeccable with your word. It's telling a powerful story, telling an empowering story about yourself and about your situation, even about your past events. So speaking truth and light starts to cause you to be very aware of how you're speaking, not only to others, but to yourself. So it's really talking about self-talk as well. My self-talk, I had this inner judge, this inner critic in my mind that was tearing me down all the time. They told me that those stories that I was conditioned as a child to think about, those storylines were playing. I had an inner critic that was repeating that shit to me. You don't deserve anything. You're a junkie. Those people were right. You deserve to die. That was the storyline in my head. That was the self-talk I had. So being impeccable with your word helped me to start addressing how I spoke to others, but most about how I spoke to myself. So gossip and speaking negatively behind someone's back is poisonous for others, but it's also, more importantly, it's poisonous for yourself. What does this do to your self-image? If I'm the type of person that talks shit about somebody behind their back, how does that affect how I see myself? And if I'm trying to see myself in a more empowered way, I have to start to behave in a way that starts to help me see myself. So misuse of the word is how we pull each other down and keep each other in a state of fear and doubt. Here in treatment especially. So as I talked about those guys in Memphis, Tennessee, that's a great example of somebody that was being impeccable with their word. They had the ability to lift me up in a time of need, in a time where I was on the ground. I had the shit kicked out of me. Those guys, by what they said to me and what they did, they had the ability to lift me up. You can see it here in treatment. You have the ability to talk your peers up or tear them down. Also, you have the ability, that same ability with yourself. You have that ability to build yourself up or tear yourself down in this process. It is really tough for me to be able to build you up if you're in your mind tearing yourself down. If that self-talk is negative, it's very difficult for me to start to help you change that. So it's one of the things I work a lot with the YAs is being aware of the self-talk and being able to tell a more empowering story to yourself. An empowering story, something that lifts you up, that prepares you to move forward and make the changes that you want to make. So there's one voice and behavior that you observe all day, and that's yours. Being impeccable with your self-talk. Like I said, it's the one voice that I hear all day long is mine. So I can come in contact with negative people, but it's only for a brief moment. But if my talk is negative and my talk is poisonous, it is poisoning my mind. It's poisoning my subconscious. So I started being very careful about how I spoke. So tell a great story, tell a more empowering story. I developed a hero story. That's an assignment that we've done with some of the young adults. When I was sitting in Memphis, Tennessee, I thought, how cool would it be, as I started learning certain things about psychology, about my psychology, I thought, how cool would it be if I actually could write the story? If I am the author, if I'm the one writing, how cool would it be? And so I wrote a story about a semi-fictional character that went through some of the same shit that I went through the child abuse, went through the addiction, and I wrote it up to the present moment. And I didn't realize that at the time, but I was writing the story of a hero. I was writing, every hero goes through some shit. Every hero goes through a downtime. They have their own struggle. That's when the hero is born. And so I wrote the story out, and the future part of it was very empowering because I wrote the story out from even in that homeless place that this character was in. I wrote the story out, and the character became a rock star psychologist. He was doing, helping others because his experiences in life had developed his brain in a different way that allowed him to see some things that could help people. So I wrote that story, and I looked back at it, and I decided that there was nothing about that story that I couldn't do myself. And so that's the story I started telling myself, that I'm a hero in the making. So it also helped me to retell the story, the narrative, to change the narrative of my past. So where I'd been stuck in this victim mentality, the story that I told myself was not very impeccable. It was not without fault. The story I told myself was one of this kid who came into a childhood that he didn't deserve. Then he struggled with an addiction that he didn't deserve. He was cursed, with his childhood. He was cursed with an addiction, and it played out into my life. That my behavior came out of that storyline. As I rewrote the story, what I decided was after I saw the story as a whole, I went through that stuff for a reason. I went through that stuff because it developed some very special things within me. So I decided that after reading that story that no longer did I believe that I was cursed with a traumatic childhood. I believe I was blessed with it. I don't believe that I was cursed with an addiction. I believe I was blessed with it. Because those two things in my life caused me to seek out a deeper meaning. a deeper meaning, a deeper purpose for my life. What very well may be the thing that saved my life was finding a new purpose, was finding a meaning for some of the pain and the suffering that I went through. And so I started telling myself that story. That's a totally different story than what that guy was telling himself 3.5 years ago. The story he was telling was that of a victim. All this shit has happened to me. Look, it's continuing to happen to me. I don't have a chance. I needed that childhood to change. I needed people to change. I was stuck in a victim mentality. So writing the story out helped me to become aware that I am the one writing it. This is what I want it to mean. This is what I want it to be. That childhood means what I want it to mean. That addiction means what I want it to mean. And so I started telling myself a more empowering story. So speak with integrity and have a positive influence on yourself and others. The word is magic. He who says he can and he who says he can't are both usually right. And that's Confucius. As I studied, I was looking at this this idea of how powerful my speech is, how powerful the language I use, how powerful it is. I started picking out like in different religions, and I think Christianity, it said in the beginning was the word. What I found was in different religions, they all talk about how powerful speech is, how powerful it is of how you describe your reality, how you describe yourself, how you describe what's coming up in your life. What you see coming in your life, what you see for yourself, is it empowering? So I think that the different religions they started to point towards that power, and so I looked for little tidbits of wisdom in different religions and different writings, the Buddhist teaching, and it started. And I'll say that it's been very effective for me to start to pay attention to what I'm saying. So don't take anything personally. This is a big one I think for humans in general, but for addicts and alcoholics as well. We tend to take everything personally. So part of not taking anything personally is realizing that everyone is in their own story. If I come across you on this campus and you have an attitude, I don't know what's happening. I don't know what's happening in your story. I don't know the phone call that you've just got off of. I don't know what's happening with the family environment. I don't know any of these things, and so it's really, it's not rational for me to take it personally. And most likely it has nothing to do with me. If I'm being careful and taking care of, being impeccable with my word, I'm doing, following my spiritual principles, most likely if somebody has something against me or they have an attitude with me, it probably has nothing to do with me. It has to do with them and their story. If somebody comes across you with a negative attitude, they're projecting their negative attitude. It's not necessarily anything to do with you. So I started to find comfort in that. If you looked at me wrong, if you got mad at me, if you were upset because of the conditioning from my childhood, I automatically thought it's because I've done something wrong. Here I am being a burden again. I've caused this person trouble. I've done something wrong. And so I will go back to, I still have to address that today. It's such a deep conditioning from that childhood. So I still have to address it. I still have to remember, look, am I taking this personally? What are the facts of the situation? I love this one. So other people's opinions do not create your reality, it only projects theirs. You don't have to let other people's opinions create your reality. For a long time, like I said, from the time I was a child to the time I went through my addiction, people's story about me, I took it personally and I took it to mean the truth. So I took their opinions and I let it create my reality. I let it create who I was. They said I was a junkie, I guess I am. And so I followed into it. My behavior followed that. So I started recognizing and started being very careful about it. If I'm watching what I'm saying, I have to be very careful and stand guard at the door of my mind from what other people are saying. I have to protect myself from other people's opinions and not to take it personally, not to take it as being true. If someone's having a good day, they'll be nice. If they're having a bad day, they will likely project a negative attitude. This is a big one. The opinions you have about yourself are not necessarily true either. Therefore, you don't need to take whatever you hear in your own mind personally. Like I said, my negative self-talk, if I took what I said in my own mind, if I took that personally every time, it was going to keep me beat down. Because my self-talk says that I was worthless. It says that I was a junkie. It says there was no hope. If I would have took that personally and believed that to be true, then I would have never been able to make the changes that I've made in my life. So I had to start recognizing that. Look, those are old thoughts, they're old beliefs. It's okay that they're there. It's okay. It's part of the conditioning. So I let them go. I watch them, I hear them, but I don't take them personally. And then I try to replace it I try to challenge it and replace it with different talk, with more empowering self-talk. That was a really big one for me. So don't make assumptions. This is another one. These were groundbreaking ideas. They were profound thoughts for me at this moment in my life. Aaron Beck, a psychologist, he called this mind reading when we assume what others are thinking. Really what I found was that what I thought you were thinking was what I was thinking. And my story was that, I'm worthless, I'm junky, I'm in the way. And so whenever I interacted with you, I assumed that that's what you were thinking too. And it just created this really self-destructive cycle. So I started paying attention to, what assumptions am I making? Am I operating on the facts? So it is the schemas and these thought patterns, they can be seen as being habits. You have a habit of thinking this way. You have a habit of not trusting people. You have a habit of worrying. You have a habit of, for me, it was a habit of assuming the worst. If something happened, I just assumed that all hell was about to break loose. Or I assumed that this was the end. It was the end of the world. Anytime if somebody was angry at me or somebody, if I pissed somebody off, it was the end of the world. I assumed the worst. Even when things were going good, I just assumed that something bad was coming. And you can guess how negative that was and how that created this state of fear in me. I also assumed that I wasn't strong enough to face some things that I faced. I had to eliminate that. I had to destroy that assumption as well. So I like this Mark Twain quote because I think it really it speaks to what I experienced through the assumptions. Mark Twain said, "My life has been full of 1,000 tragedies, most of which never happened." I spent so much mental energy going through the worst of the worst, thinking that this is going to turn out to be terrible. I also made assumptions that kept me from experiencing things because I was scared, because I thought I was going to be uncomfortable, and I thought being uncomfortable was bad. I assumed that was a bad thing. I would not do it, and it kept me from reaching for things in my life. It kept me from going for things, and I've had to totally stomp that out. I still have to work on it every day. So I like this. This is talks about the assumption. Fear makes the bold assumption that all the facts are being presented. Anytime I'm in a state of fear, I have to sit down and say, what do I really know? Am I assuming that I know how this is going to turn out? So I'll say that whenever I split up with my wife, at that moment, I would have swore to you that was a bad thing. That was the end of my life. I could not live without her. I've been with her since I was 12. My assumption was that I knew, in my mind, I knew how the rest of my life was going to play out, and it was going to be terrible. That was part of the way I thought. In reality now, from this moment, looking back, it was one of the best things that ever happened. Because her ideas were going to keep her in that city. And for me, I'm a dreamer. I believe that I was put here to fly. I was put here to go after something bigger than myself. And I wasn't going to be able to do that in that city. So by her, what I would assume was really terrible, it actually was something very powerful and very important for my life. So you can see how, my first impression of events can be flawed. It can be skewed. I do not have enough information about anything to know whether it is good or bad. I do not have enough information about moving forward. I don't know what's going to occur. All I can do is try to develop the best attitude I can and take care of things as they come. I cannot assume the worst about it. It's just very detrimental, and it's very limited. It limits your ability. It takes your energy away too. Your energy, your ability to think and to process what's happening in front of you. It takes away from that. And so anytime I'm scared, anytime I have this fear being built up inside of me, I ask myself, what do I really know about this situation? And a lot of the times, the main component in those situations is how I respond. It's not really about what's happening. It's about what I'm telling myself about what's happening. So something happens that my first perception designates a meaning, and then I think it means something, and then I lock onto that meaning, and then I create everything outside of that. So if I know that my brain has been conditioned to pick out negative meanings, if I know that my childhood developed me to perceive negative meanings where I'm going to be hurt or I'm going to be left, then I have to entertain that idea. I have to build the skill of questioning that when that occurs. So fear is making the bold assumption that I have all the facts. I have to build a new habit of challenging my brain. When my brain tells me it knows something about a situation, because your brain's trying to take a shortcut, your brain's trying to protect you. And these coping skills, these thought patterns, have really been developed just to help you survive, but they don't help you to enjoy life. They help you survive up to this point. But what I found in my life is they also hold me back. They hold me back from going after something that I really want to accomplish. So if you practice not making assumptions, you open yourself up to the world and to experiences. How many opportunities have been passed by because we judge it prematurely? Because I think I can predict the future, I will say no to something. I will say no. I probably wouldn't enjoy that. Have you ever done it? No. I got asked the other day, do you want to go eat here? And I was like, nah, that doesn't sound good. They're like, have you ever been it? I was like, oh, no. And then we went, and it was actually pretty good. How many other times in my life do I do that? How many other times, and I'll tell you, 3.5 years ago, I avoided everything that would make me uncomfortable. Anything that made me feel that, even being up in front of you guys speaking, I would have avoided that at all costs, because there was a chance I could lose my train of thought. I could, I might not be able to speak well. Y'all might judge me. I would have avoided that. And the only way I found is that I just had to keep getting up here and doing it over and over, regardless of what, all that mental chatter going on. So I had to start stepping into things that made me uncomfortable. I had to start moving towards some of those fears, because I really had to start training myself and helping myself to learn that a lot of the time these predictions aren't real. I'm not that good at predicting the future. If I was, I'd play the lottery, I guess. But my mind will tell me that I am. My mind will tell me, hey, we know what this is. No, we know what this is. That's bad. And I just don't know enough about anything. I don't know enough about what's going to happen. You don't know enough about what's going to happen when you walk out of these doors. This stay at Cornerstone, you don't know when you're going to hear something, when you're going to hear that one thing that turns it all on. And if that were true, if you're looking at it that way, then man, how exciting does it make it? Like, I could hear something that changes my life. I could get some knowledge that's going to help empower me to make some changes in my life. How important is that? How awesome is that opportunity? And those are two different ways of thinking. Rather than thinking it's an obligation, I have to be here. You close yourself off to learning that thing, whatever it is, whatever somebody says. So part of not making assumptions is also communicating clearly, asking questions, clarify, even when it's not comfortable. I used to be embarrassed to ask questions because I thought that meant I was stupid, or if everybody got something and something was taught and everybody got it and I was the only one, I'd be like, oh. So I just wouldn't say anything because it would make me feel uncomfortable, because it really played into that negative self-talk, which is I'm stupid. If I say anything, what I found was that that's just not real. It's all in my mind. So this is another Confucius quote. I really like Confucius. The man who asks a question is a fool for a minute. The man who does not ask a question is a fool for life. So I tried to practice that. Like, it's okay to not understand something right away. It's okay to ask questions. And I'll tell you that more than anything, what I found is that clarity is power. To be very clear with your relationships at home, relationships here, what counselors are saying, with anybody you're interacting with, clarity is power. That's where if everything I'm teaching you is to help you to become empowered, then I have to start paying attention to what empowers me. And clarity is power. Clearing things up. Not making the assumptions that I assume I know what you're thinking. I assume I know what you heard me say, but maybe you didn't. And so ask, clarify, be sure. All right, so another way that I found that, so I told you I had a habit of assuming the worst. I had a habit of, so in cognitive behavioral therapy, we call it catastrophizing, thinking that, making a mountain out of a molehill. I did that. I had a habit of doing that. It was the end of the world, everything that happened. Somebody didn't answer my call, it's the end of the world. They're dead, whatever it is. That was part of my habitual thinking. So I've told you about the brain locking onto a meaning. So I had to find ways to help my brain to search for a different meaning. If I know that my first perception is going to be skewed, if I've recognized that and I've accepted that through my thought patterns, my first perception might be distorted, then I have to help the brain. The brain will lock on it and it will not search for any other answers. So ask yourself, what else could this mean? If you try it, and especially if you're getting some negative emotions, ask yourself, I know what I think it means, but what else could it mean? It's really cool if you can experience it and you can try it, because the brain will start to search for other answers. The brain will actually allow you to start taking in some other information. At first, when you decide something means something and you're set on that, your brain will ignore all other information coming in because it wants you to be right. It's looking for the shortcut. It's a survival thing. So I had to develop a way to ask myself a question. Questions are very powerful. If you ask yourself, a lot of times we ask ourselves the same questions, but gets us the same answer, which just makes us, reaffirm whatever the beliefs are. So I wanted to find a way to help my brain to get more information. So ask yourself, next time you're faced with something and you're pretty sure that it means something negative or something that doesn't feel real good, ask yourself, what else could it mean? Whenever me and my wife split up, I was locked on that meaning. If I could have said, what else could this mean? I know what I think it means. I think it means somebody left me. I think it means my life is over. If I would have been taught then to say it, or if I'd have had the ability to say, what else could this mean? Because it could mean something else. And really, ultimately, what I found is I'm the one that gets to decide what it means. I'm the one that would have been able to decide that meant something more empowering. I'm the one now who has decided that that was one of the best things that happened in my life. I'm the one now who has decided that my childhood was a blessing more than a curse. The meaning is up to me. You can train yourself. You can condition yourself to be able to challenge meaning. And I would encourage you to find in every interaction, in every circumstance in your life, to search for an empowering meaning. So the fourth agreement is always do your best. Like I said, I talked to you about the inner critic in my life, in my mind, that was always tearing me down. The one who was telling me, all this negative shit. Sometimes I'll tell that voice just to sit down and shut the fuck up. Like just chatter away. But if I'm always doing my best, if I'm doing my best every day to develop myself, if I'm putting in that effort, 110%, to do what I need to do to grow, to recover, it's very hard for that inner critic because it doesn't make sense. That inner critic's talking, but what he's saying doesn't make sense because I gave my very best today. I've done my very best to put everything into every interaction I have and everything into changing my life for the better. So another thing it does helps to accomplish goals, doing your best, starting to make it a habit of giving everything you have at that moment, and whatever it is, in group, in an assignment, on the phone with family members. I'm going to devote myself to giving 100% to be the best that I can be at that moment. And what will happen is you're developing a habit. You're developing a habit of going and putting everything in that's in front of you. And that the changes after that, they have no choice but to change. You go into things with that mindset. Transformation has to occur. It has no choice. So also, it builds a positive self-image, recognizing that your best may look different every day. Sometimes I'm in beast mode, I'm 120%. Sometimes I'm like 60%. But as long as I'm giving what I got, the best you can do is the best you can do. But just make sure that what you're doing is the best you can do. So if you do your best always, as we were just talking about, you will become a master of transformation. If you learn to put everything into what you're doing at the time, and if it's personal development, I see it as an investment in yourself. If you're putting everything into trying to do better, to trying to become stronger, to trying to become wiser, you put everything into that, and that focuses on not how everything else can change, but how I can change. You put everything into that, transformation happens. Often it was. While you're in the middle of transformation, it's hard to see it. But now looking back, it's very clear to me. I just have to trust that if I continue doing my best every day, if I continue working towards something, an inner ideal, this idea that I had for my future, if I continue working for it and going for it every day, then I consider myself successful. As long as I'm working towards it, as long as I'm moving. Each day is an opportunity to right wrongs, to clean up neglect, and to grow towards your potential. I think that whenever we talk about, we talk about our higher power, what our higher power, what our higher power's will is for us. To me, I believe I was put here on earth to see what I could create. I believe that I was put here to grow to my potential. It makes a whole lot of sense to me that alcohol and drugs can't be a part of that. If I'm using or I'm drinking, I cannot develop to my potential. I think the will for my life, the idea that even being human, you're put here to see what you can build, to see how good you can become, the best you that you can become, to see what the gifts are that you have within you that you can offer the world. I believe that's my purpose today, is to develop myself to my fullest potential and to take anything out of my life that is hindering that. Anything that's hindering that growth, I have to do without. So to do your best every day means you have to know your direction, having an idea of what you're moving to. When you're putting your head down, you're doing all the work, start working on this idea. For me, it was the person I wanted to become. It was the me of the future. How did I see myself, and what did that person have that I needed to build? What were some character traits that were desirable about this hero that I saw in the future? And what did I need to do? I needed to come back here and start moving towards that. But I had to have an idea. I had to have an idea of what I was going for. So I use it with the wise. If you take a man and you give him a bow and an arrow, and you put a target in front of him, you blindfold him, you spin him around, how can that man hit a target that he cannot see? But a better question is, how can a man hit a target that he does not have? So I'd say work on this vision of yourself in the future, who you're trying to become in this process. Ultimately, the goal in this process is it's not where you're getting to, but it's about who you're becoming through this process. What are you building? What are you creating? So doing your best also is working on your why. So if I wanted to do my best, how did I maintain that? In recovery, you're going to have ups and downs. Sometimes it's going to get hard. Sometimes you're going to lose sight of why I'm doing this. So I put this on there. It was very big. It was very big for what I was taught, was to start to understand why. Understand your why. Why learn? Why grow? Why meet new people? Why do this recovery thing? Why invest in myself? Now, ultimately, this is an answer only you can have. I can't come up with this for you. But I would say look for it. Start to write it down. Why am I doing this? Why does this make sense? Why does it make sense to invest in myself? Why? And I'll tell you, for me, and my father passed away. My father passed away and didn't get to see me clean and sober. My father didn't get to see me accomplishing the things that he thought I was going to be able to accomplish. That's one of my whys. That's a deep emotional reason why I do what I do. And that is the shit that's going to give you energy when you're feeling down, when this shit gets hard, when family's not doing what you want them to do, when life circumstances don't line up with what you thought would happen. Your why is going to power you to move through it. Why? Because I decided that my children's father was not going to die a junkie. He was not going to die of leaving a legacy of giving up, of quitting, of not developing to his potential. I want to pass something different on to my children. That's a deep emotional reason why. That's why. So any day, I get tired, or, I'm putting all my effort into school, I'm putting all my effort in here, I'm getting wore down, but I know why I'm doing this. I'm passionate and I'm driven and I move forward and I take action every day to improve my life tomorrow. And I do that, but part of the reason I have so much energy with it and so much passion is because I know why. I know why I'm doing this. And I also know where I'm trying to go. I know what I want. I'm very clear on what I want. And then I work hard every day to move towards it. So Friedrich Nietzsche, philosopher, he said, if you know your why, you can overcome any how. If I know why I'm doing this, it doesn't matter what's going to happen. Like I said, if I get tired of plans do not work out the way that I thought they were, I really like running. I like running long distance, because when you get to that point where your body tells you to quit, you can experiment with this. Why am I running? What am I running for? What am I training for? I'm training my mind so that when shit doesn't work out, I can continue to move forward. I can continue to think. That's a why. So it's really powerful and it's really cool to experiment with. But for you, moving home, going back home, going back into your life, you're going to get hit with some shit. Life is going to hit bad. I like the Mike Tyson quote. Mike Tyson said, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. And so I found that to be true in recovery. I knew what I wanted, but sometimes shit didn't work out. Sometimes something happened. I got hit in my mouth. So what happens when I get hit? When I go to the ground, I'm on my knee, when I feel like giving up, I have to know why I'm doing this. That why gives me a reason to stand back up. That why, so Buster Douglas, another Mike Tyson. And Buster Douglas and Mike Tyson were fighting back in the day. Mike Tyson knocked Buster Douglas down. Everybody had said that Buster Douglas was not going to win. So they knocked him down. Buster Douglas got back up and he started fighting back. He started fighting back and he ended up knocking Mike Tyson out. They interviewed him after the fight and they asked him, how did you do it? He said that his mom had passed away days before the fight, and one of the last things that he had told his mom was, "Mom, I'm going to win this fight for you." He had a powerful reason why. He had a reason to get back up. He had a reason to fight back. And that's how powerful it is. And so if I recognize how powerful it is, then I would think, it makes sense for you to sit down and examine it. Look at why you're doing this. Look at why this makes sense. Identify those reasons why so that you can go to them when shit gets hard. When life hits back, so you can go to them. So it'll keep you moving. All right, so after everything we've gone over, what agreements have been made? What agreements have you made about your reality and your place in it? At what point did somebody tell you something was the way it was and you decided that you agreed to it and it was true? And does that still fit in your life? Is that still something you want to hold on to? What agreements have you made about your life, about yourself, about reality, about what you're supposed to do with your life? At what point did somebody tell you something about yourself and you took that to be true and it became a belief? And does it make sense to still hold on to it? So just start to examine, where did those agreements come from? Who taught me these things? Who taught me these beliefs? So what agreements have you been given? So I've talked to you about where those agreements come from. Changing false beliefs or agreements begin with the word, consciously challenging automatic thoughts. That's why I spend a lot of time on helping guys develop mantras or positive affirmations. Because the first thing that I started doing, the very basic, before anything started changing in my thought process, I had to decide what I wanted it to be, how would I like to think, and not how I was thinking at the moment, but how would I like to think, what would I like my self-talk to be, and then I had to start consciously saying it. Even though at times it was very different than what I was hearing in my head. I am enough. And I took that guy, maybe the world can't afford to lose me. I started saying that shit out loud, and it started challenging what I was hearing in my brain. It's the beginning of starting to change the mental conditioning. So you have a choice of what you believe and what agreements you make. The crows, I told you I was going to tell you about a superstitious belief. So whenever I saw crows, for whatever reason, I thought it meant that impending doom was there. Something bad was about to happen. Like I said, I was also a baseball player, so I was very superstitious, but there was a belief that created anxiety and fear inside of me. Sometimes if I saw crows and I thought it was a bad omen, and nothing bad happened, I would create it. I would make something bad happen to make that belief real. So I started saying something every time I'd see a crow, rather than having anxiety and fear. I started saying every day and every way things are getting better and better. Every day and every way things are getting better and better. And that's a much more empowering thought to have when I see a crow than that other story that I was telling myself. Now, I do realize that they're just birds and they're doing what they're doing. They don't have any significance or any meaning at all. The meaning came from what I gave it. So that's a very, very powerful thing. For you to be able to make a decision to find empowering meanings throughout your day, empowering meanings in your life. So we talked about the power of being impeccable with your word and the power of writing a good story, of telling a good story. I got this quote, Harley Davidson said, when writing the story of your life, don't let anyone else hold the pen. Don't let anybody else write this story for you. Don't let anybody else tell you what this means for your life. That is up to you. This is coming to Cornerstone. Don't let anybody tell you what it means. It is up to you what it means. Don't let anybody tell you what an addiction or what alcoholism, don't let them tell you what that means about you. That is up to you. This shit means what you want it to mean. Find a more empowering meaning. Decide. Make a decision that I'm going to find a more empowering meaning for what I'm going through or what I've went through. So I told you, I do not believe anymore that I was cursed with a bad childhood. I don't believe that I was cursed with those traumatic events. I believe I was blessed with it. I don't believe that I was cursed with an addiction. I believe that I was blessed with it because it caused me, it built some very special things in me, a way of thinking, a resilience to life, a passion because I started to overcome it. I have a passion for helping others. That's very special, and I might not have ever found that without it. So deciding that that's what those things mean is finding an empowering meaning. It's more empowering than thinking that those things happened to me. They didn't happen to me, they happened for me because they built something inside of me that's a much more empowering meaning. So there's three things that you have power over. What you will focus on, we talked about the power of focus. What you focus on, your energy will go to. If you're focused on a negative, not a very empowering meaning, your energy will go there. You will feel it. Whatever you're focused on, you will feel. You can decide what the things or events mean. Like I said, finding a more empowering meaning, and then you can decide what to do with that information. After you've decided what you're going to focus on, what things mean, then your choice is how will I move forward. It's very powerful to be able to alter your focus. If you're focused on this being an obligation or an opportunity, that's the power of focus. So I'll leave you with this. I studied speakers. I studied just influential people in my life because I wanted to figure out how did they think, and could I adapt that way of thinking. So I found Martin Luther King was one of the most powerful speakers that I learned from, and I really like this quote. He said, "If you can't fly, run. If you can't run, walk. If you can't walk, crawl. But whatever you do, keep moving forward, because that's recovery, guys. Keep moving forward. Keep growing." That's all I got.